Hi guys, it's Mrs. Mattingly here, and I am here to read you the last chapter in Addison Cooke and the Tomb of the Khan. It is chapter 44, and it is called Runnymede, and it is starting on page 435. This is it, guys. The driver braked smartly at the wide front steps of the manor and cocked an arm over the seat. 200 quid. Addison was aghast. 200 British pounds? I can get a camel across the Gobi Desert for half that. Well, we ain't in the bloomin' Gobi Desert, are we, mate? Seems a bit stiff. The driver raised his voice over the rain pelting the roof of the hackney. Drove 47 kilometers out of London for you, I did. Got to drive all the way back in this grotty bleedin' mess. I ought to charge you 400 for this pleasure. Addison realized he did not have any British money, or any money at all. Just as he was wondering what to do, his door was opened by a butler carrying an umbrella. Addison stared in amazement. An honest-to-God butler? Tuxedo tails and everything. I shall settle the charges, sir, said the butler, with a voice as smooth as butter melting on a griddle. 200 quid. The cabby sized up the butler's tuxedo and adjusted his price accordingly. Plus a 20-pound tip on account of driving in the blinkin' rain. You drive a hard bargain, sir. The butler produced the required banknotes and opened the door for Molly. May I take your bag, madam? I guess, said Molly uncertainly. She handed over her father's survival satchel, unsure if she should tip. The butler helped Molly from the cab, closed her door, and shouldered her satchel, all while holding the giant umbrella perfectly still over Molly and Addison so that they did not get a drop of rain on them. Addison admired this. Addison Cooke, he said, smiling, and my sister Molly. The butler studied their faces intently in the taillights of the hackney. Addison read a novel's worth of emotions passing behind the butler's eyes. As I live and breathe, said the butler at last, it is a true pleasure to finally meet you. Jennings is my name. He shook both their hands. Come inside then. We'll warm up something for your dinner. The cabby, having counted his money, sped off in a hail of gravel. Jennings guided them up the colonnade front steps of the portico. Ooh, this is Mattingly's grammar here. Through the wide double doors and into the main entrance hall. Addison gapped at the curved grand staircase, the marble pillars, and the magnificent crystal chandelier. You may set your bags there, Master and Lady Cooke. I shall take them upstairs for you. He shuffled out of the umbrella. You must be exhausted from your trip. I shall show you to your rooms in the east wing so you may change. Molly was still wrapping her mind around the idea of having rooms in something called the East Wing. We don't have anything to change into. We lost our clothes in a plane crash in Mongolia. My best suit, said Addison bitterly. I see, said Jennings. In time, I'm sure we will find a spare dinner jacket among your father's old things, Master Cooke, and perhaps something for the Lady Cooke as well. Addison pondered the idea of eating dinner in a formal dinner jacket and found it suited him right down to his wingtips. He realized his mouth was dangling open, so he shut it. It gave him something to do. Jennings glided up the winding stairs. To Addison's delight, the butler lifted a candelabrum from a wall sconce. No electricity in this wing, I'm afraid. Why not? Lord Cooke does not favor it. Lord Cooke, said Molly, perplexed. You don't mean Uncle Jasper. I mean your uncle, Lord Cooke. That was my reason for saying Lord Cooke. We're talking about Uncle Jasper, the man who can't drive a car and is banned from Monte Carlo for card counting, Addison clarified. Yes, and we are also talking about Lord Jasper Cooke, the 17th Earl of Runnymede. Addison and Molly shared a look of confusion and bewilderment. They were quickly catching up to the fact that there were a few small details about their family that Uncle Nigel had failed to mention. "How old is this house?" asked Addison. "The estate is 1,000 years old, sir. This manor house was built atop the ruins of a Saxon castle." Jennings indicated a row of portals along the upstairs hallway. The early portraits were Victorian, the later ones were Edwardian, and the last portrait displayed Uncle Jasper himself. "Here we are, your rooms." Molly and Addison explored their adjoining rooms. If Addison's room had been any bigger, he could have hosted a soccer match. Molly was astonished to discover she had a 4-poster bed. "You could sleep a Girl Scout troop on this thing," she called. She and Addison had always shared a room and bunk bed, and she had never minded. Now she began to see there were other options in life. "Are the accommodations to your satisfaction?" asked Jennings. Addison settled into an armchair by his fireplace and called back across the room. "It will do, Mr. Jennings." "Excellent, Lord Cooke. Excellent. Lord Cooke will be most eager to meet you." "Where is he?" asked Molly. "In what room would you expect to find a cook?" "The library," said Addison. "Precisely," said Jennings. "It is in the western wing. Can you draw us a map?" "I shall await you by the main staircase." Jennings turned and padded silently down the hall. Addison and Molly did their best to spruce up their torn and dirt streaked clothes. The siblings retraced their steps to the main staircase and called out Jennings' name. The butler appeared beside them as if summoned from a genie's lamp. He guided them across the vacant, drafty rooms of the castle until they reached the sumptuous library. Addison took a few tentative steps across the plush Turkish carpet before he drifted to a stop, one hand on his chest. He felt he was having a religious experience, like a pilgrim entering a cathedral. The library was immense. Rolling ladders reached to the tops of the 2-story bookcases. Spiraling staircases assessed hidden reading lofts tucked amid the rows. A grand staircase led to a balcony level, filled with still more shelves and cushioned window seats connected by zigzagging catwalks. The walks were hung with painted shields and decorated flags of coats of arms. Suits of armor with plumed helmets guarded the central aisle. A library globe full 5 feet in diameter rested in its mobile cradle. Jennings coughed discreetly, lifting Addison from his trance. As they padded across Anatolian rugs, passing taxiderm bears from the Hindu Kush Mountains and stuffed Bengal tigers from the Indian subcontinent, Addison glimpsed shelves racked with herbs, potions, tribal masks, and ancient relics. Each aisle contained maps and corked specimens from dark and distant corners of the world. 6-foot mahogany blow-dart guns from Java, feathered spears from the Maasai warriors of Tanzania, bottled poisons from the ninja of Iga province in Japan, and strange herbal remedies from the Blackfoot American Indians of rural Montana. Jennings arrived at a large rotund, clasped his white-gloved hands behind his tailcoat, and announced their presence. "Lord Cooke, may I present Addison and Molly Cooke from the United States by way of Mongolia." In a button-tuft leather chair by the fire sat a man with twinkling blue eyes. He had the tanned and salted look of a man who'd lived many years on the sea. He sprang spryly to his feet and clasped Addison and Molly's hands, his face exuding warmth and sadness. has it finally happened then? My brother Nigel and his dear wife Delia, they have been taken. I'm so sorry. Addison admired his uncle's crisp and elegant British accent. How do you know? My sources in Asia, and I believe you've met Eustace at the Hong Kong Museum. It's this bloody prophecy, you see. May I say bloody around you? Forgive me. I'm not quite sure how to talk to young people. I'm not entirely sure how to talk to adults, for that matter. If it's all the same, I shall just speak to you as if you're adults. I have somewhat more patience with that. What is this prophecy? Asked Molly. Who is the shadow? Asked Addison. Did he kill our parents? And why were we never told about any of this? Also, are we rich? Asked Molly. Rich? Asked Uncle Jasper. In knowledge, perhaps. In history, certainly. Yes, but are we rich? Heavens, no, Uncle Jasper said, chuckling. Not even a little bit. But this castle, the grounds. Been in the family for ages. Costs a bally fortune to maintain, but we are academics, not bankers. But you have a butler, said Molly. Jennings has a salary. He makes more than I do. Uncle Jasper gestured them to armchairs by the fireplace. He began filling a pipe. Addison was pleased to see it was the same sort of calabash pipe his Uncle Nigel favored. No, if you want to be rich, it's best not to become an archaeologist. You're an archaeologist like my father? Asked Addison. Your father was an archaeologist like me, Uncle Jasper corrected. He lit his pipe with a few meditative puffs. Molly rattled off 3 sneezes in quick succession. Gesundheit, my dear. Forgive me, but it seems you both know almost nothing about our family. Your parents fled to New York to escape this blinking prophecy. Felt it was safer to keep you from me or from any ties to who you really are. But destiny has a way of unraveling the most well-intentioned plans, doesn't it? Addison and Molly began firing off questions like reporters at a press conference. Uncle Jasper held up his hands. All right, young cooks. You've been through more than anyone ever should. You require food and rest. Besides, there are some things that must be shown and not told. Tonight, you may ask me 3 questions, and then Jennings will swoop you off to your dinner. Is someone trying to kill us? Asked Addison. Yes. Addison gestured to the inch of bronze chain just visible under Uncle Jasper's collar. Are you a member of some secret order along with Uncle Nigel? Yes. Are we safe here? Asked Molly. Uncle Jasper looked deep into her eyes, considering. Addison marveled at how those eyes could contain so much humor and so much sorrow. For now. Uncle Jasper, I put my trust in the dark head. I took the golden whip from the Khan's tomb and tried to trade it for Aunt Delia's and Uncle Nigel's lives, but I got them killed, and now the shadow has the whip. Addison felt the edges of tears quivering in his eyes. He was ashamed, hoping nobody would see them in the dim light of the fire. Ah, the golden whip. No, Addison. You are looking at it all wrong. Uncle Jasper's face was lined with care. You trusted your instincts. You knew to take the golden whip, and you were right. I was right? It's not just a whip, Addison, or a piece of archaeology. It has a purpose. That is why Malazar is willing to kill for it. It's very important. I don't understand. The Vori were going to try and finish off your aunt and uncle no matter what you did. Handing over the whip didn't kill my brother. The shadow did. Uncle Jasper drew on his pipe and squinted through the smoke. But you were quite right to free the whip from the tomb, for now the prophecy can continue to unfold. You trusted your instincts. You believed in yourself. This prophecy again, said Molly. fighting a losing battle to snuff out a sneeze. All in good time. Why do they need this golden whip? Technically, that's a fourth question, but I will let it slide. The shadow needs many things, you see. The whip is part of a puzzle, and we need to be getting it back. And as for you, Uncle Nigel said, casually picking a piece of lint from his creased trousers, you'll be wanting revenge, I suppose. Addison raised his eyebrow. How? Are you learning to fight? Barely, Addison admitted, thinking of his meager process with his butterfly knife. A little, said Molly, remembering her roundhouse kick. Can you ride a horse, wield a sword, fire a bow and arrow? Can you climb? How far can you run? What languages do you speak? We know a little ancient Greek and Latin, not just dead languages, living languages. Well, Addison considered, we're making good headway with English. Uncle Jasper looked at him doubtfully. Can I ask you one more question? Said Addison. May you ask me? Uncle Jasper corrected. Why would we need to use swords and ride horses? Isn't that all old-fashioned? Uncle Jasper set his pipe down by an ashtray. At any time in the past year, have you ever found yourselves in life-or-death situations where you wish you had these skills? Addison remembered Tony Chin easily besting him in a sword fight. He remembered nearly falling off his horse several times in the Nandam race. He remembered the terrifying rock climbing entering the Khan's necropolis. He began to suspect that not everything he needed to learn could be found in a book. As a matter of fact, yes. The world is full of ancient relics and people who will stop at nothing to steal them. Uncle Jasper loosened his tie, unbuttoned his collar, and drew out his medallion, glittering on its bronze chain. Did your uncle manage to give you his medallion? Addison nodded. You may wear it for now, Addison, but eventually the medallion must be earned. Can I earn one? Molly blurted out. You may attempt to earn one, Uncle Jasper corrected. If you choose. He rose to his feet. The butler had magically appeared behind them. Jennings will prepare you a bite to eat, and then you must get a good night's sleep. Your training begins tomorrow. That night, Addison stood by the window of his room. The rains had cleared, and a full moon lit up the gardens, the meadows, and the forest beyond. He knew he should feel tired, but his body was alert and his thoughts were racing like greyhounds on the back stretch. He needed to learn the secret history of his family. He needed to learn all he could about the shadow. He needed to learn the prophecy. The pain of losing his aunt and uncle came to him in waves. The image of their fall would not leave his thoughts. It was too close to the image of his mother's fall, printed forever in his mind's eye. Addison drew the Templar medallion from his pocket. It gleamed in the moonlight. For the first time since losing his aunt and uncle, he hung it around his neck, the cool metal against his skin somehow electrifying. There was a new feeling running in his veins. He was not a kid anymore. He sensed that. He had seen too much. He had seen the man responsible for the loss in his life, Malazar. Addison stood with his bare feet on the wooden floor, watching the storm clouds swirling over the southern skies, and felt a new set to the features in his face, a new glint in his eye, a new mission in his life. He needed to find out who his parents really were. He needed to retrieve the golden whip. And there was one more thing he needed most of all: revenge. And that is the end of the book. There is a author's note in the back that you're free to read if you want, but that's the end.